Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and I'm here with Russell Case.
Good morning, Harmony.
Good morning.
Today we have Sarah Hatcher, who's the morning Mysore director at Meadowlark Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
She's a senior yoga teacher registered with the Yoga Alliance and teaches workshops throughout Scotland, offers retreats at yoga in Italy. I'm a little confused, though. You're not Scottish?
No, I'm American. And I actually used to run the program in Meadowlark, but now I'm established in Dublin, Ireland. So I think I've got to change my bio a bit. But yeah, I used to run that
info.
One. That's okay.
I'm not sensing or hearing any kind of Scottish at all.
No, I'm from Reno, Nevada. That's where I grew up. And I've been living in Europe 10 years now. I spent 8 years in Scotland and the last 2 here in Ireland. Yeah,
you're kind of like a skiing person. Like you were like really very deep into the skiing world in Nevada. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like a real athlete.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Reno Lake Tahoe area. So I spent most of my childhood skiing, watching my dad fish in the rivers. Just being outside, lots of camping. And that's exactly how I describe myself, just very athletic, always wanting to incline to do anything with my body. And I think that what brought me to yoga, because I got so injured through all these sports with this competitive lifestyle.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when I was dancing, I had some knee injuries, but I also remember when I got really a little bit older and was very, very serious about dancing, I stopped skiing or snowboarding altogether because I was so worried about injuring myself and having it affect my dance sort of career or progression. But then when I started yoga, I also didn't want to injure myself.
I know.
Was that invented in Scotland?
In Scotland?
Yeah.
I don't know where it was.
I think it's Austrian.
Is it Austrian?
I think they're the ones who invented the first ski lift.
Because you're Scottish, aren't you, Harmony?
Yes.
And your dad was a ski instructor.
Yeah.
So
it's Canada, and we lived right near Banff, where there's all the big mountains, the big Rocky Mountains, and
I think I'm really hung up on the Scotland thing.
You are. You need to let it go.
Okay.
But Scotland is. I mean, I'm hung up on it too, Russell, because my kids were born there. My husband and I were married there, and I love the Scottish people. And, getting my British citizenship and staying there and working there. I love Scotland too.
It's so beautiful there, right? It's so green, and
the Highland Mountains are like sleepy giants.
Oh my goodness.
I've only been to Glasgow, but I would love to go back to some other areas. Travel around a little.
You guys will have to take a trip and go up to the sky and kind of the higher.
Yeah. It'd be amazing.
You'd love it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows is The Thick of It, which is about British politics, and it's by Arnaldo Iannucci, who did Veep. Veep's a very popular show. And it's all of these very soft British Southerners from Sussex and London who are just being abused by Scots. And you see these, because a lot of the British parliamentarians all, did their schooling in Scotland and Scottish boarding schools. And you just learn how to really take abuse. And so these guys like Alistair MacDonald or just Alistair Campbell are just who is the lead character in The Thick of It is based on. And he's just the most foul, abusive person. And it's fantastically hilarious.
And I'm so sorry, I'm not familiar with the show, but I could see how, right there, Scots and the English.
Yeah.
I think the Scots are tough, aren't they?
The classic line from the show is Alistair Campbell saying to someone, "You're about as useful as a marzipan dildo."
I knew you were going to say that.
It's just like it's a constant. Like that isn't really very useful.
Right.
How did you know I was going to go there of all places?
Just, I know how your brain works. But did you move to Scotland initially for love? Is that what drew you there?
No, that's a great question. I went there to be a guest teacher, like a lot of us Mysore teachers. So I was living in Philadelphia, and students at the school, or David Garrigues School, Ashtanga Yoga, Philadelphia. I was there with him, assisting him, practicing there. And students of ours were in Mysore and met this incredible lady, Karen Brenneman, and she is now Karen Kirkness, but she knew some of our students, and they said, "Oh, you should have Sarah come and teach for you this summer." And I was already traveling to Europe to go see Dena.
Oh, cool.
And so I was like planning a trip to Europe, and it just so happened I got in touch with Karen, and it worked out that I could teach there for, I think it was like a 5-week Mysore cover for her, alongside seeing Dena. And that's when I met my husband, and that's why I stayed. Because he was living there 2 years. He's from Australia. And that's kind of the rest is history. I stayed. I ran the program, and I had to go back to the US the next year. And that's how I met you, Harmony, as I was in the Confluence in San Diego. And you and I, it was the spring of 2013. Yeah. I had to go back to the US to get my visa and kind of take care of the business side of things, of getting married in Scotland and just leaving.
Yeah.
And saw Dena in the Confluence, and I got to meet you. Practiced
right beside each other.
Yeah. And that was the only time I've met you, actually. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. No, that was such a cool coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that practice and that meeting really clearly. And
yeah,
it was beautiful.
And after that time, it was so beautiful. After that time, I went back to Scotland, and that's where we lived for up until the pandemic, really, end of 2019.
And then you moved right in 2020 before the pandemic to Dublin.
Yeah, you got it. We just moved here. I only had about 2.5 months to live here, try to see the city, try to meet some friends. And then, of course, we had the closing of the world. So there was a few kind of quiet years there here. So
yeah, wow, that's intense.
Oh my goodness, I missed that in the bio that you sent, that you're actually living in Ireland now.
Yeah, she's in Dublin.
Oh,
I'm
my
in
goodness.
Dublin. I mean, I don't think I'm picking up an Irish accent, but I might a little bit, maybe. They say Dublin. The Dublin.
Did you pick up a Scottish accent when you were there?
I don't think so, but I think I mean. When I don't know. I think maybe a little bit, but I definitely am. I'm sounding less and less American than. I mean, I sound very American, but not as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm. You have Russell's accent, that kind of
in between,
soft American, slightly European-ish.
In between.
Well, I would think that actually having married an Australian and not having married a Scot, it's also quite a bit different. Because you're not living with it. And when I was married to a Brit, I never really left Britain. I never really left England the whole time that I was married. And even when I was living in San Francisco, I'd go home to England.
Right. So there's a very Australian quality to our home. Exactly. The way Tim Hatcher talks, the way his family was. So yeah, two expats living in Scotland. Yeah. We were definitely the outsiders, but the community of our friends, some were Scottish, some weren't. And that's classic yoga, Shala, Mysore program type thing. There's people from all over the world that practice. So it wasn't that it was a Scottish studio, of course, that Karen started in Meadowlark, but there are a lot of people from all over the world there. So, it took us a long time to become Scottish. I agree. Yeah.
To accept you were becoming Scottish,
or even understand people, and that's the same here in Ireland. It's taken me a while to understand what people are saying, and
Yeah.
Just something simple as your mail's here, what?
Yeah. I remember when I was in Scotland, one of the students has because sometimes if they're speaking really quickly with that really strong accent and you're not used to hearing it, you're just like, are you speaking English to me?
That's a tough accent.
It took me, I had to ask this poor man he was lovely, to repeat what he said 5 times. And finally, because it was also a little bit out of context, he was asking me about bears in Canada. And I was like, what is he saying to me?
Oh, yeah, that's a very, very Glaswegian too. They're going to talk about everything. They're going to chat. Yeah.
I had a long.
It was funny though. It was the funniest thing afterwards. I was like, wow, that was I was listening to a completely different language.
I had a long conversation with a lady from Scotland about students, and I thought that we were talking about achievement for a long time because the student was in skills. And it's like, oh, so yeah, the skills, I think, they do really improve over time. And I started to realize that she wasn't understanding me either.
Right.
Because what she was saying was schools.
Oh, schools.
But she was the skills. The skills are great. What's going
You're
on
having
right
two
now?
separate conversations with each other.
Okay.
Scottish language is hard.
Yeah, it's fun though. It's interesting when you're an expat living in another culture, even if you do speak the language.
Yeah.
There is these sort of funny things that you realize oh wow, I'm really not in America.
Oh, very, very not American. I went back to the US last summer to just see what it was like, be with my family for a while, and it was just totally different than I remembered. Even 10 years ago, it's really changed a lot. And I was just happy to get back to Europe. I gotta say, I love being I love being American and going to and visiting my family, but I think I'm here to stay.
Yeah.
How have you noticed the difference?
I don't blame you at all.
Oh, a couple of the differences, the wildfires. That's huge, and we can talk about that too. But we were there in end of July and into all of August, and it was just the smoke was there in the Reno, Tahoe area, California, all the way through till my parents told me all the way through October, end of October.
Wow.
And just the intensity of the fires, that was different. There weren't that many parks where we were, outdoor play parks for kids. That kind of surprised me. Whereas when I grew up, I remember seeing lots of parks around, but compared to here in Europe, say Dublin or even Edinburgh, there would be loads of parks, kids. I'm talking kid places to go that are really nice, and I only found a couple in Reno.
It's interesting. I wanted to talk more about your family. Actually, you said something really interesting when what you wrote to us, that your parents, I think, didn't grow up wealthy, and so when they became professionals, your father was a lawyer and your mother was a teacher. They kind of just threw everything at you because they had the means to. And I just wanted to find out more about them, and I wanted to hear more about your experience with fire, which is extensive. But I just want to start first with what you can tell us about your parents. Were they Nevada natives? How did they get to be where they are?
No, that's so sweet of you to ask about my parents, because my dad I'll start with him. He was actually from Reno, but ended up going to school at Berkeley and went on to move back to Reno. But he went to Vietnam War and was drafted and had four Purple Hearts. And he never really talked about it growing up, right? It was that was part of my past and we don't really talk about it. But we work hard. And it was okay, we work hard. But I remember when I was about 12 or 13, he gave me his Purple Hearts and was like, these are for you. And you can hold these when you're ready to, I'll have them for you when you want them. So he kind of, I think his mentality was, you try anything you want to do and just see what you like and see what suits you. And so that was pretty neat. And he was, I'm close with both my parents to this day. So my mom sang, but she's from Ohio. So she grew up in kind of Sandusky, Ohio area and then she moved to North Carolina for a while, oldest of 4 children. And when she put herself through college, she drove her VW Bug across country for a teaching job in California I think it's the Folsom area where she was near Sacramento, outside Sacramento. So she really just was always ready to start her career and be successful from a very young age. Mm-hmm. Then when she met my dad, I think late 20s, early 30s, he was still going to school on the GI Bill, and she was already set up as a teacher. So I think there was California. This time, and they lived in California for a while, and then they decided to settle back when he finished law school in Reno. And for my mom, she was already established in California. She didn't really want to leave California, but now they both are still living in Reno to this day. And my mom was a teacher for, 30 some years. And my dad just retired this year. He's at 77. So I feel pretty grateful that they had this interest to keep my sister and I interested in all sorts of things that they never got to do. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Because they had you horseback riding, they had you skiing, you were playing piano and violin, I think.
Piano. Played piano. My sister rode horses. I was more into sports. I tried everything from dance to gymnastics to soccer to skiing. And that is just, I'm so grateful that I had this huge childhood of opportunity that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, I have this, I've been to Reno to go to Lake Tahoe to ski. And I think people might have an idea that it's like a little mini Vegas, but it's not really like that. It's more like a big Banff to my eyes, like a big kind of ski town.
I think it's a ski town for sure. It used to not be that way. It used to be more of just a small town that was the industry, of course, was the casinos a little bit, but we had the mining. Nevada, there's a really strong, there's a really mining history of Nevada. And I think the Reno really wasn't that big of a town. But then the skiing got a little bit more, it did become a ski town and a more outdoorsy place, more of a place for people to go instead of Colorado or instead of Jackson. People are moving to Reno to live there in Ski Tahoe. So I think it did change quite a lot in the last 10, 20 years. But I would say it's definitely a ski town because it's got some of the best ski resorts right there, within an hour's drive.
Did you ever do Tim Miller's retreat? He always did a retreat in Lake Tahoe, I think, right?
Yeah, I never did his Lake Tahoe one, but I did get to practice with him when in Bishop when he'd come. Oh, cool. There were students of his that lived in Bishop, Mammoth Lakes area, and so I studied with them, and they knew Tim. But that was when I was just a super beginner too. So. The Tulum retreat is the one where I met him at.
Yeah.
Oh, in Mexico.
Yeah.
You have to forgive me.
Tulum and Lake Tahoe, right?
I really like to keep a more linear narrative, and Harmony isn't really for
I like to jump everywhere.
narrative. So I'm just going to try and bring you back. Can you describe just how intense of an athlete at skiing you were? Because I think you had a couple of knee surgeries and you were were you ranked competitively in high school?
I didn't ski for the high school, as there was a rule you couldn't ski like club skiing, like private skiing and ski race for the local high school. So I chose to ski like for what would be like the U.S. Ski Association. We call that USAA. It's like this. So, and then that kind of sent you into the FIS, the federation, to ski. So I was skiing at the FIS level, FIS level. And I went to all those things like junior nationals and all that. And so I skied up until, I just had a couple bad crashes. I was getting out from school early. That's where my dad was pretty incredible. Both my parents supported me skiing, but my dad would drive me up to Tahoe to ski. And then I remember being at like 14, 15, being like, when are you going to get your car? And then finally I would drive myself at 16 and go skiing, leave school at 1 and be on the hill by 1:45 too. So I think it definitely affected like my learning in school as well. I remember being a little bit behind in some things and having to get a little bit of help because the skiing was always just this most important thing. But then I moved to Tahoe one year, my junior year of high school, and lived with a family in Truckee. And it was only just an hour, half an hour away, but it was enough that I could just take off that travel time. And I went to Squaw Valley Academy for a year. And that's when I kind of just went downhill. I just got a little bit too burned out. And that's when I got literally
downhill at Squaw Valley. Yeah.
Was just too much for me. I think if I hadn't done that, living with a family, if I just stayed with my parents and I was so together, I was so driven, I was so sure of myself. And really I was just a kid and I needed a little bit more support, like getting dinner on the table. And I needed a little bit more emotional support, which they were there to give. I just was so driven that I didn't really want to have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you were kind of burned out from skiing when you found that Yoga for Women book.
Yeah, you're right on. So it was Truckee, California. I was 17 years old. I was strolled into this bookshop and there was this little book that had someone sitting, just the image of the body with the colors down the center, just the chakra colors. And I was like, what is that? I've never seen anything like that before. I picked it up, read it cover to cover, and I started doing yoga from a book, really. And then I kind of just started stretching, following the exercises, breathing. And then I found a teacher about a year later when I moved back in with my parents, my senior year of high school. I'd quit ski racing. And that's when I kind of went back to normal high school. Like people started seeing me all the time. Like I was just back and I joined the clubs and I got connected with my high school friends. And I was close with my class in my high school, but I was closer with the class above me. More, I think. So they had already graduated. So I was a little bit of a loner that year. And that's actually good because I just kind of healed my knees and got into yoga, got into rock climbing. I still was doing sports, but it was more like I was just swimming and just taking care of myself, kayaking, doing all sorts of outdoor stuff, really.
Your mom driving a VW Bug and your dad going to school at Berkeley, I would have thought that maybe they had some experience with this kind of stuff. Like they had maybe done a random yoga Kundalini class somewhere.
They might have, they might have, but I don't think they were like going to talk to me about it at the time. They were just like, whatever you're doing, just keep at it. It's working. You're doing good. I think later my mom said she did do some yoga in the 70s when she was in California, but it was never, she's like, nah, it was not like that. Or, but it was just hatha yoga. I never, it was just very basic yoga. But the most important part about that yoga was just like learning how to be still and watching and the basic stuff, sitting, watching your breath.
Yeah.
Do you think that you take after one of your parents? I'm sorry, Harmony. I've got a whole question list here.
Going into like the parents so much.
I do, because it's really teaching. I wonder because
it's so
the
cool,
legal, your mom being a teacher and your dad being a lawyer. There's so much study there. There's so much interpretation of texts, and I wonder if one of them you take after more than the other.
I don't know. I think like my I have one sister. She lives in Hawaii actually.
Oh wow!
And she's more of the speaker, the orator. Like she's the one that if you have an argument, she'll go for it. Whereas I'm like more willing to sit and chat, maybe have a discussion, a little bit more like my mom, maybe teaching. I always wanted to. I never really thought of myself as a teacher, but look, I'm a teacher. Yeah. So I think I was probably always a little bit like my mom, but in terms of personality, I probably have a little bit of both of them. Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you have knee surgery when you were young?
Yeah. So I had reconstructive ACL surgery that year, and they took my hamstring and grafted it into my ACL. And they take a little slither, and you're only 17, 18. So I recovered in 4 months or something.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Amazing. And so that surgery that happened, it was like, 1994 or 5, I can't remember the exact number, but that surgery I had later had a scope on it about in 2010. I had someone go in and have a look at it, and they said, oh, that ACL, that thing is just there forever. It's so good, so well done. So I've never had any troubles with my knees, but I've definitely keep a close watch on them.
Yeah.
So here you are now, you're 17, 18, and you're thinking about going to school. Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do in university and what you wanted to do there?
That's a great question. I really just wanted to be a park ranger and live in Yosemite and be in the hills. So I applied for school at University of Oregon. I went to school there.
You're a duck.
I spent my summers. I'm a duck. I went to summers. Yes. I went to summers. I got the summer job working in Yosemite National Park. And I show up there after my freshman year of university college, and I show up in Tuolumne Meadows with the dream job. I'm the entrance fee collector in Tuolumne Meadows. And it was just incredible. I did that all 4 years, and I just learned how to climb. And I got just thrown into the fire. Honestly, I just wanted to be
literally. You were thrown into the fire.
Like I was like living with like the greatest climbers in the world, and I was a total beginner, and I just kind of rocked up into the motherland. It's like it would be like showing up to India, never doing yoga before. It's like I just show up in the heart of it.
Yeah, people did that.
Yeah.
But you were also thrown into like the literal, like you became a hot shotter.
Yeah.
And
so that's
people were throwing you into the fire.
Yeah. So this outdoor thing, my pursuit of becoming a park ranger, I studied environmental studies and science. And then I had this little, I just was always wanting to be in the park. And so what happened, and this is very interesting, is in 1999, you might have heard about it, but in Merced, there was a local guy who worked at Cedar Lodge, a Yosemite employee. He murdered a park ranger and some tourists, a woman and her daughter and an Argentinian exchange student. And this all happened when I was in the park. And it just was at this pivotal time. It was the end of my last year at university. I was entering this, like, I don't know, I feel like I was just this filled with emotion, filled with drive. And I just got crushed. Like, oh my God, like all these people I know were killed. This guy was a local. He said, drive through the gate of Tuolumne Meadows. I knew this guy. And then I just said, I'm going to leave the park for a while. So I left Yosemite, and I spent a year kind of just climbing on the road, doing a lot of climbing all the time, doing some yoga on the side, but mostly just climbing seriously. And then a friend of mine I met in Chamonix, I met this friend of mine at the bar, and he's like, do you want to get a job hotshotting? And I was like, what? Because my degree was in environmental studies. I already had all this background working for the Park Service. To get a job in the Forest Service or the BLM, when that's the kind of the umbrella for hotshot crews or fire service crews, I'd be on a good shape because I already have a forestry type degree. And he's like, I'll get you a job. And I said, that's okay. Never done fire before in my life, took a month-long course, and I walked on to a hotshot crew.
Why do they call it hotshot?
So there's 18 or 20 people on the crew. They live together. They work together, they train together, and they call them, split them up into like 3 squads or 3 groups. Yeah. And hotshots are kind of a cool group of elite firefighters, wildland firefighters, that when a fire hits a mountain and we try to initial attack it, get it right away through, maybe they send some smoke jumpers on it. Maybe there's a helicopter crew, but if it's a roadless area with no roads, they're likely to air attack it. And if they can get a drive in, hotshots will initial attack it. They'll try to get the fire, contain the fire, either through backburning, through control line, through doing lots of different tactics. But most cases for hotshots work by doing not necessarily initial attack, but getting the fires that run away. So let's say the smoke jumpers lose it, the helicopters didn't get it, and it's gone like, 1,000 acres. Well, they might call in hotshot crews. They're probably about, I don't know anymore, maybe there's between 60 and 70 hotshot crews right now in the country. They'll call like 4 or 5 crews in, and they'll all work together like a swarm and get the fire. And they call that kind of extended attack. And so a hotshot crew might be on a fire for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but you'd be gone. You'd be just be on the road anywhere in the country that they need you. Could be Alaska, could be Arizona. I fought fire in my hotshot crew all over the country, and they just drive you or fly you there, and you're there living on the dirt.
And then you're like camping and just like hanging out in the forest. Yeah.
Fighting fires.
Fighting
and
fires. I
just love being outside. I love the crew. I love the people. I just love the tactics. I love the military training I received. At first I was kind of scared and a bit like, oh, that's kind of a bit much. But I loved how if there was a trouble or conflict with working with those guys, they either brought it direct and sorted it out right there, or they stepped outside. There was no like chat or she said or he said. It was like, I just love that. And that mentality of like, go direct, be honest, do it the right way, the first time best, have the greatest line you can make. These were part of the ethics of my specific hotshot crew. The crew boss I had is this guy named Tom Bates. He's in McCall, Idaho. You know, he was just so specific about this etiquette of life, of being so clean. If you weren't 10 minutes early, you were late. This etiquette, I feel like at the time I needed that kind of sharpness to kind of clean me up a bit. And so I did that for a few years. And then the progression was to become a smoke jumper, where you jump out of airplanes and do initial attack. I went skydiving once and just said, no way, I like yoga too much. Like, I'm not doing it. Yeah.
Were your parents just absolutely terrified?
Mortified.
At this point?
My mom went to therapy. She just thought I was like going to die, you know, because crews were still getting burned over. I mean, I'm not saying, I'll talk about that, not so lightly, but firefighting is very dangerous. Now it's even more dangerous than it was 20 years ago, but those hotshot crews are really have themselves in a dangerous position. And
what does being burned over mean? That sounds terrible.
That's like a serious accident where the hotshot crew, they might have had a blow up of the fire, like just taking over. You know, fires will make its own weather. So you might be watching the weather and controlling it, but if all of a sudden the fire makes its own cloud, it'll fall over and just change direction, or it'll spit fire and create fires away from it. But lots of things can happen if you make you could have a technical mistake and people could die. There'd be a tragedy, or it could just be that the fire went absolutely berserk so fast that they couldn't get to their safety zones quick enough.
Right.
So it's not that common, but being burned over would be like, the fire going into the control area or the area that was supposedly safe, a safety zone, and then killing crew people.
And you've experienced that, where you have
not any burn over, but experienced the experience of what it's like to lose people I knew, or friend of a friend's that passed away, and I'd just be that close to it going, this is just really, really rough work. But it's also safe in the sense that I know lots of firemen still that are loving their job, and a lot of the tactics have changed too, you know, like you wouldn't dig line downhill. They're less likely to put people in dangerous positions and let the fire go instead of risk harming others.
Right. Yeah.
My granddad was a fire chief in Pontiac, Michigan, his whole career. I'm just totally fascinated by this line of conversation, because I'm, you know, at some point I'm still hoping that I'll grow up and become a fireman. You know?
You can do it, Russell. You can be a fireman.
I'd have to probably pass a basic training, but I don't know if that's possible.
I just keep thinking of backdraft.
Yeah. Backtracks.
Hold the line.
That's a different.
You go, we go.
Different from hot shotting, I think.
It's just. I think those experiences, like these experiences of being outside from Yosemite to those years of they were like 7 years there, where all I was just outside. It really shaped me who I was, because it was like they were hardcore. Like the pack was 70-pound pack. We're carrying a Pulaski. You know, I would do like 25 pull-ups with my boots on. Each boot weighs like 8 pounds. Like I was such a tough. I looked like a brick shithouse. I was just
What's her name? Laura from Linda Hamilton from Terminator. That's what I'm imagining.
Yeah, I can totally see it.
But bigger, because she'd have to have like more, just
more weight,
just a little more weight to do like the 30-hour shift, or where you're eating an MRE, it's a military ready to eat ration. And you're like, it's horrible food, but you don't really care. That's what you get to eat for a while.
Yeah. Maybe of Aliens, that lady.
Sigourney Weaver?
No, the other one.
Oh, the other one, the one that gets killed.
She got killed.
I know the one.
Everybody gets killed.
I just wasn't that tough. I mean, after the few years of that, I just wasn't that tough. I was like, this is enough. It's so draining on even with 6 months on and 6 months off. On those 6 months off, I would just practice,
you were even practicing at the camps. You were doing a little bit of yoga.
Yeah. So I would just roll out my mat, and I would do, Janu A, try to forward bend, maybe do a Marichyasana, get a bind. I kind of have my eyes half shut, so quiet, so tired, and maybe Ustrasana, and I'd lay to bed and lay down.
And then when you were off, what did you do? So you're working 6 months on, and then 6 months off. What did you do?
So during the fire season, we would have 2 or 3 weeks on the road. And that was those practices. And then you'd get 2 days off, and I would do primary in the morning and intermediate in the afternoon. And I would just do that 2 days. And then 6 months off, when I wasn't firefighting, I would just practice just like anybody would that has no kids or no obligations or no jobs. I'd practice for 2-3 hours every morning, when you have that luxury, you're traveling, when you just throw your mat out and you don't stop until you're done,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And did you travel? Did you go meet teachers at this point?
Yeah. So that's what I would do. I would go meet teachers. I would spend a week with someone. I'd spend a month with someone. I just kind of built my skill set on when I wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And then when they'd give me poses, and then I'd see them a year later. And I was always a self-practitioner that just had this firefighting job and saw a teacher once in a while. And I'd see them, they'd be like, "Oh God, here, do this." They'd give me a lot. Because I wouldn't see him for a year,
Yeah.
Right. And is that when you met David Garrigues and Dena?
Yeah. I didn't meet Dena until 2012, much later in my yoga world. She's honestly like my last teacher, if you want to talk it like that. But I sought her out and we can get to that. But she was someone. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask, because I thought you were doing Ashtanga Yoga all through university, which is before your hot shotting period. So I just wanted to get a little bit more background on your origin story, because you strike me as a kind of a superhero.
Well, you're very nice. You're very sweet, but it was all these people that just happened to be at the right place. Like I said, I was living in Yosemite in the summers. There was university at Oregon. There was so much yoga going on in Oregon, but there might have been a Mysore program in Eugene where I was going to school, but I was just taking some lead classes and then doing on my own. And then I would go summers. I would be around all these people that were practicing in the meadows. I'd follow them. So I was definitely doing Ashtanga, but it was definitely from like the sheet, the book, watching others, getting a lead class when I could, but it was about 2002. So it had been just about after, just before I started hot shotting, just after university. That's when I started meeting like serious teachers. I wintered in Bozeman, Montana, and ran into Randa Chehab. And Randa had this yoga studio, Down to Earth Yoga in Bozeman. And I was just a ski bum. And that's when I really learned, I think, classic Mysore practice. It was 2002, and I was with Randa, and she introduced me to Christine Hoare, Nancy Gilgoff. And they're the ones that just held my hand through all those years. And then when I met David Garrigues, it was like, he really was like kind of just
cleaning it up.
He was definitely, he's just different teacher than those guys. So it was a whole different, I felt like I had such a nice group to serve, that sounds funny, to carry me. If I needed my females and I needed to ask Christine a question, I could call her up or go to Vermont and see her. Or if I wanted to see Randa and I was going to go skiing, I'd show up in Bozeman. And then David was, he was traveling. So I could invite him to come see me, or I could, there was a nomad was a really nomadic practice there for me for a while, for sure.
One of the things that you mentioned about those teachers, Dena and David, is especially is that you said they felt and resonated so much like your early teachers in that they were heart-centered and that you felt held. And I thought that was really beautifully put. Did I have that right?
Yeah, thank you. I think like when you're young and early and new to the practice, and particularly young, like I'm in my 20s, not particularly flexible, definitely strong, but like, I couldn't do Marichyasana-D for like 4 years.
Wow.
Nor could I do Padmasana for 4 years. So those female teachers like Nancy and Christine and Randa would just, they just kind of let me plug along and teach me how to backbend and, be like, okay, someday, try to grab me, try to crank me in. I just was so stiff. And so that kind of care, I laugh, I'm like, oh my God, that kind of care of like, look at this young kid, so stiff, so strong, but are so stiff, but so strong, but like, we're not going to push her because she could just quit. So they just kind of let me alone and gave me that like space to see them and seek yoga out rather than pushing it on me. And then when I met David later, he was like, oh yeah, he did the same thing. He kind of saw that, well, she's so capable, or he saw that she's so keen. We'll just take this slow.
Yeah.
So would you say like the women were much more like, they kind of let you, I know Nancy's style of teaching and is more just like, go do it. If you can't do a posture, don't worry about it. Do the next one. Like they were just like letting you kind of play and enjoy the practice. And then when you met David, he was a little bit more, I'm going to say strict, but just methodical. Like wanting to make it more precise and like maybe holding you at a posture so that you could like explore it more.
Giving me like, you need to stay there and work here. I never got that opportunity to be like, go do a whole series. It was like, I was stuck at primary series for those 4 years. And that was a wonderful opportunity to just be where I needed to be and work at Marichyasana-D. Tell my students that now. I'm like, this took me 4 years, you guys, just chill out, just stay right here. Whereas, so David was more like, okay, let's get you strong and work more intelligently in the areas that you are held back at. Why? What's going on? Let's work on some more hip stuff. Let's work on.
But your hips were so strong because you were carrying a 70-pound pack and like hiking.
That might have,
but they weren't open. They didn't want to do Baddha
Konasana. And skiing your whole life, you know. I mean,
they didn't want to bend,
No, that's why they're strong, because they're like supporting all that.
They're trying to protect you in that way.
They're like, stop. They're like,
I always tell students too, like especially skiers, they always have the tight hips. But when you say like, look at all the years you skied, right? Like it took you 17 years, maybe not 17 years, but 15 years of skiing where you're like developing those muscles to do a very specific action. And now you want them to relax and lengthen and do something that's totally opposed to that action. It's going to take a little time.
Oh, you got it. I mean, and I think that's David, but I didn't meet Dena for a long time. Right. And when I did meet Dena, she didn't give me a pose, didn't move me on for 3.5 years, meaning she just was there to just hold me and let me refine. And that was just lovely to have that kind of, I kept going back. And she's like, you again, like, not saying she was resistant, definitely not resistant to teach me, but as we all know, like, she's definitely choosy who she wants to teach. So
for sure.
I adore her. She has a particular kind of energy that I would appreciate working with, because it's so much about holding someone accountable to their self-limiting ideas. And I really, really liked that. It was fucking frightening, but I kind of felt like I needed that as well. And I could see how being with her would be transformative. If I could put together a big block of time, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Like 10 years.
She's the long term. I mean, that's exactly it. It was like,
or
I
even
thought
3 months in a row would be great.
3 months in a row.
because she, and I had all this experience with David, this many years now with David. And I was like, I really want to meet Dena because she'll compliment him. I know I'm working on advanced series. I kind of need a female to balance out what he's teaching me. Like it's so intense, it's so physical. And I want someone to kind of calm it down. Not that way. Dena was way more strict than David.
Yeah.
So I was 100%. Like, oh gosh, it's just their tools, their toolkit, and their delivery of the practice is so similar in a lot of ways. But like, he's going to tell you something and she's going to sing to you, yet she might give you a couple beats while she sings to you.
Sing, yeah. That's funny.
And she will literally sing to you.
She will literally sing to you.
Which is delightful.
If I could just kind of nail down where you are in space, it's you're firefighting, you're hot-shotting, and then you're kind of, I think, burning out, pardon the expression.
Totally.
And can you describe to us how you got from there to Philadelphia? I can't imagine a more different environment for you to live and be in. And I think you'd be a fish out of water.
I was just,
and forgive the expression.
You just nailed nailed it on the head. So I quit hotshotting and I moved to Boise, Idaho, where NIFC is, the National Interagency Fire Center is, because my girlfriend, my best friend, who I lived with in a house there, Jenny Camp, now Jenny Baumgartner, she and I lived together. Well, she went to go jump. So she pursued her fire career to smoke jump at the Boise Center. I said, well, I'll live with Jenny. I'll be there with her while she jumps and I'll help her. The joke on the street was that, we were this married couple and we were really, I joke around like my wife of like a few years, because we lived together for a few years in Boise. We took care of each other. And that's when I started teaching at the public schools. I just started teaching part-time. I started substitute teaching and teaching yoga on the side. Yeah. So I did, okay, enough. I'm just going to teach yoga and we can't just teach yoga. And I can't firefight anymore. I can't work in the interagency fire center. I think I need to leave that wildland, that natural world away for a while. And so I worked in the public schools while I taught yoga. And then I had a shala. I opened up a little school in Boise, a nice little yoga program, little Mysore program. And it was 2008, 9, 10. It was a tough time to have a yoga school. It was just a recession. And, and I knew the time was to leave Boise around 2010. So I wrote to Nancy and Christine and Randa and David, I hadn't met Dena yet. Right. So I wrote to all my yoga community, my like gurus, and said, what am I going to do? I need to do something else. I'm ready to go. And then David wrote me right away and said, you come to Philadelphia and help me open up this school.
Okay.
And he was transitioning from leaving Seattle and moving with his long-term current partner, Joy Marzik. And they moved to Philly and I moved with them. And so,
wow,
it was insane. I dog walked on the side. I walked dogs.
Didn't join the fire department.
No. I just found another side job and did the same thing I always did, just side job, and taught yoga and practiced with David and helped him run his Mysore program when he was away. And then the rest is history. From there, I went to Scotland.
My cousins live in East Philly, out by the racetrack, and
hey, cool.
It's a tough fucking town, and I can't imagine. Also, like ideologically, coming out from Oregon to Philly is also tough. Like just the kind of people that you meet. I think my cousin was a white supremacist at one point. It's like really, really fucking tough town. As different as Calgary is from San Francisco, to be honest.
I mean, we're talking like Boise, Idaho, Eugene, Oregon Boise, Idaho is like, we're talking like Idaho in general is just, it's the wildest state other than Alaska in the sense that it's got more wilderness areas, more people move there for a reason, to hide or be alone. It's like, you want to be in Idaho, go to Idaho. Not saying the whole Idaho is like that. So I've got many friends that live in Boise, and Boise is progressive, as is Sun Valley, Ketchum, Haley area. But most of the Idaho is pretty sketchy. So I moved to Philly and I'm like, oh man, and then those yoga students of David's, they kind of carried me around, ushered me, let me stay with them for a while until I found a place. I got this dog walking job, which allowed me to kind of go all over the city on my bike and walk different dogs. And so I got to see the city from a very very on the street perspective. So I wasn't like in an office. I was just walking around outside all day long with dogs. And so I saw every type of person. I saw like the South Philly crowd. I saw North Philly. I saw all sorts of different areas. And that was awesome because I ate my way through the city. I would just buy food and eat. And foodie and Philly's like anything I get my hands on. And basically Philly's a food place. Like no one really knows that about Philly, but it's all about the food.
Wow.
So
my cousins was just about beating up minorities. So that's very different from what I've heard.
No, there's a really good food culture there. So that that fueled me because I was no way I was gonna do all of third series, walk dogs, adjust, and sustain. I just loved it. It was great. And then
wow.
You at this point in you must be working on advanced A and B, right? And you kind of like did that practice for 10 years. Very intensely.
Yeah, roughly about that. Yeah.
That's an intense amount of work to do every day.
Yeah, I think it was just, I have the energy. I mean, look at I think that's your constitution. And we all gotta see that as yoga teachers. It's like some people have this this energy. And I've always had that, like even from my childhood, just this. And so even when the yoga is like, all right, stop and sit down and be still and learn how to chant and learn how to do meditation, it was like I always had stuff to burn. So for me, those big practices were just stoking my fire that was already lit.
But that's a big difference to go from not being able to bind Marichyasana-C to then doing these massive back bends and massive forward bends in advanced B.
And psychotic leg behind the head.
Yeah,
leg behind the back.
Psychotic. And how's that possible?
Yeah.
A lot of it's the care I received from David and Dena, just getting put in it. And then taking a break with babies. I think that's really, really valuable. That, I mean, we can talk about that next, but I feel like having a whole break, if you're a serious practitioner, no one wants to take 9 months off, but taking 9 months off is great. You just reset, go back to zero. And that I think was the longevity part of, I feel blessed about the practice. Cause it's like those breaks, I was still practicing every day, but it wasn't like anything advanced it was just hatha yoga. But gosh, coming out the other side, you're stronger.
I'm back at zero right now, and I am in
can reset.
I'm in a lot less pain. I don't do much, I kind of roll around in there a little bit but it is nice not being in pain all the time.
Yeah. And I feel like that's really a huge maturity, like we all do, that I mean, this year, my emotional ability and everything that was going on in my life in January, I just took a huge reset. I was like, it might be time again. I just had Calvin 3 years ago. So Calvin, I took a big break for Calvin, but I didn't take enough break after his birth. I only took a 2.5 month break, which I've with Dashiell, my first baby, I took a full 3 months off post baby. I think that's just minimum. Needs to be 3 months, but you want to get on that mat so bad. You've had that baby, you want to get back up. So I felt
Do you think there should be set rules about that kind of stuff?
I do. And Nancy and Christine Gilgoff, Christine Hoare said, you have to take 3 months post baby. And they told me that. And I went, oh, are you sure? And I think it's your pelvic floor. It's your lining of your abdomen. And I know as hungry as you could be, you can sit in Padmasana, you can do down dog, and that's probably about it. But like much more, I don't know. I don't want my students to come back. I'll say, I'll see you in 3 months. Have your baby. After 3 months, come back.
Yeah. Did you find it difficult to come back after a break for 3 months?
Yeah. So hard. I mean, like learning how to lift yourself up. There's no bandhas. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Can't push the ground. You're kind of, I like to call it you're kind of squishy.
Yeah, totally.
You're just squishy, like you're squishy. You just had a baby. You're full of boobs. There's milk everywhere. You're full. You're bleeding. You're messy. You're wet. You're wet, and you're like, why am I sweating all the time? Because you're like a plump fruit. It's just oozing. You're oozing, and so then you're like, oh, I'm gonna do a hard practice. Doesn't work. It's like really hard. But you start.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What was the pace of development from day 1 to day 300?
Just like namaskaras, just like 5A, 7B, some standing, back to namaskaras. Okay, Janu A, repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And then would just do a lot of that. And then the next day I would start it, all that, start at Janu B.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so just like, instead of thinking I'd do a whole series, do a part of a series one day, and then the next day start on the posture you didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you made it to Marichyasana-B, the next day you start at C, and you're like, whoa, I'm at C.
Oh, well, so you'd skip to C and start there and move.
Yeah, just because to get through a series, because of time and energy, and instead of following too many rules, just still stick to a series. Don't bounce back and forth. Still keep it as rule oriented as you can, but be more gracious with yourself, because you don't have the time, or you're full, or you're
that's kind of an interesting approach, because I think a lot of people, when they're like building their practice back, you know, if you only have a half hour, say, every day, if you're a new mom, I mean, you don't have that much time, you know, you kind of get stuck just doing like sun salutations and then maybe some standing. And like, maybe you don't even have time to get into the seated postures, or maybe you don't even have time to reach back bends, you know, or closing or whatever. Right. So it's sort of an interesting approach to like, just do like 1 or 2 seated postures. And then the next day, you know, pick it up from there and do like the next 2. And then the next day, do the next 2. That's fascinating. Yeah.
Actually, I don't think I wouldn't teach, you know, someone that way, like, who's coming to Mysore every day. But gosh, if they're a new mom, you got it. And we just have to keep modifying, put a practical umbrella on the practice, because I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. You know, I would just be stuck, just like you said, be doing standing.
Yeah. Or an old mom that's super busy.
I'm an old mom that's busy.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm 44. I'm 44 running after a 3-year-old and a 8-year-old. And I'm like, there's a reason why they gave me 2 boys. Like,
because you have all the energy.
There's like, yep, here you go.
They call them in education, they call them MOBs. And MOBs are a special breed at schools, because they have a very different understanding and relationship to the school than the other moms. Moms of boys. They say you just have to run the boys like dogs, and if you don't run them like dogs, you're going to get behavioral issues, just like with dogs.
I mean, they have to have jobs. They have to have, I mean, not like, and my kids are really good kids, but like they need to do stuff throughout the day, jobs and activities. And not that I'm going crazy, but
no, they love it. They love it though. They thrive when they're given a job to do.
It's true.
And without it, they will
become entitled.
Or get into trouble. Like they'll find things to do.
And I think you have your son, right? I mean, like, I think there's this really fine line of, I don't know, mine are still so little that they want to be with me a lot. So I'm like, well, if you're going to be with me a lot, let's go do cool stuff.
Like emptying the dishwasher. That's cool stuff.
Very true.
It's great though. It's so good. I mean, that you yourself were so active and like love sports and love nature, and I'm sure still do, and can like instill all of that life, you know, into your kids too. And they're going to develop all of that excitement for nature. And
I think it's the language we use too. I'm like, if they fall over, I'm like, that's it, get up, you're fine. Up you get. And then it's like, okay, well, let's try this. Well, that didn't work so well, let's try it again. Like, I don't think there's this, that's the thing I want them to know, is that I want them to feel as empowered as they can, and as comfortable enough as they can to ask questions, and then know when it's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I always parented that way too. And Jediah, when he was young, he loved climbing. I mean, he still loves climbing. He really is into parkour and like, you know, dangerous things, but he would like climb up, you know, they have the monkey bars. He would climb up to like be on top of the monkey bars.
Yeah.
And
you're supposed to hang from them,
but
climb on top of them.
He loves getting on top of it, like to the highest point, you know.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because my cousin's a very different type of parent. She has 2 boys than I was. And she's like would always be so worried and so freaked out. So her boys never did anything very risky. Whereas I was like, you know, I'd be spotting. But also I kind of let him do it just to like, and he's really not afraid of, you know, much, you know, he's
that's
just
why, because you let him
confident.
Do it. Yeah.
I was like, don't fall. It's going to hurt, you know.
Can you talk at all? You talked about this extensively in what you sent to us, how you juggle all the responsibilities of being a mom, being a dedicated yoga practitioner, full-time teacher. How do you fit everything in?
Because you have your own school right now in Dublin, right?
Yeah, so I'm teaching out of a established like Iyengar Hatha yoga program where they have vinyasa classes, and of course, as we know, there's nothing that goes on in the morning, so we're out of there by 9. It's brilliant. So it's a really pretty space called Little Bird Yoga and Coffee. So I kind of just try to stick on the same routine as much as possible. Routines are how we make it. Like, it's like get out of the routine, and it's like, oh no, but the routines really give you it gives you the ability to have energy or time to rest. So I just try to get up at the same time every day. I try to eat the same types of food throughout the day. Try to get up at, you know, about not too late, but not too early. Like I can't really do a practice too early in the morning anymore. It's just, I'm not up for it. So I get up about 4:45. I'm on my mat by 5:36. And I just try to make that morning routine not so slow. Like I try not to look at my phone too much. I try to get in the car or get there. Like I think that morning, that first half an hour you wake up, it's so easy to just be in this la la land of like, oh, I'll get to the practice. It's like, no, get there right away. And then once you're on the mat, you can daydream if you want, but at least you arrive. And so I try to get in there same time. So I've changed a little bit this last year with the demanding of the kids and my life and running the program and all that, is I've just practiced 1 hour. And that has been a big change in my lifestyle, like not practicing as long. And that just gives me a lot more energy to run after them and to manage all this stuff.
Yeah.
And the days I do bigger practices where I can practice the full primary, I do practice bigger series or whatever, Sundays and Fridays where I know I don't have as much going on. Sundays, that's just Mysore class that day. It's not like I'm still with the kids all day, but I'm not running around and driving and taking them. So I think for me, it's just taking that modification of the practice and making it as potent as possible in the shortest amount of time. And then I try to go to bed like the kids do, 8:39. That's me. I try. And I'm like all of us. I stay up late. I'm like, oh no, I called my friend at 9. No.
Yeah. Never call your friends. We also go to bed at the same time as our kid, like around 11. 10:30, 11. 10:30. We're falling asleep same time.
Teenagers they're up later, right? They're up later.
Usually I'm falling asleep
he was doing that
before he does.
He was staying up that late at 7. Like, let's watch another show.
He's very
time for bed.
But also, I'm as far as schedules go, I'm very difficult person for keeping a schedule. Some people are great at it, and I envy them so much. But
I like
for
to
me,
keep to a schedule.
Yeah, you're very scheduled. For me, it's so difficult.
I manage the minutes,
and it's so weird because, like, you think as an Ashtanga yoga practitioner, most Ashtanga yoga practitioners are very like, you say, very regimented. Like they do the same thing, they eat the same thing every single day. For me, for my personality,
in a day,
it's like death doing the same thing every day.
Well, that's why it's so nice to finally get to the point when you're a practitioner where you do get to have a different series. In the beginning, you're just doing one series forever, right?
But like, it's so interesting though too, because I never really had a teacher. I never had a outside of Mysore. So I've been on my own for so long. So when I was teaching, when I had a program, I had to be more scheduled, more regimented. Of course, I went to bed at the same time. But I feel like after 15, 20 years of that, it's just like, it drives me crazy.
Well, I think too, like that little hour that students have this brand new program. I just started in January. I'm pretty new here in Dublin. The students come in 6:30, 6:45, and they see me practicing. And
that's nice.
I think that's so good that they see like, oh, there she's doing it. And I was like, and then before, maybe in other years, I'd be like quiet or austere. I'd be like, how are you? How is your morning? Like, because it just takes that edge off a bit. And
totally.
I like them to see that it's like, look, this is what we do. You just come in and take the edge off and enjoy your practice, and I'll be there when I get done.
Yeah, that's nice. When I was teaching here in Calgary back in 2008, and we were teaching out of a space, I always like to get there and practice in the space before the students, because it kind of like brings that energy into the space and that focus. And I think it is like you're saying, it's really nice for people to walk into a warm space and feel like they don't have to be the ones like creating that energy. It's already like there in that space. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about practicing with your students watching? It kind of drove me crazy. I try to get in there as early as possible. I try to wake up as early as possible so I can be prepared for practice. For me, the most difficult thing about the Ashtanga Yoga practice was getting prepared for the emotional thresholds that I'd have to pass through to accomplish a posture. So like, it feels a bit like when I wake up in the morning, I was going to have to run through a brick wall. And so what do I have to do to get myself right emotionally so that I could then do a practice? And then you have to do that while people are watching you, who are really watching you because you're the teacher in the room. Does that resonate with you at all? Is that something that you've had to prepare yourself for?
Oh, I think that's what I think we all kind of think that way when someone's watching you, whether they're your students or anybody. You're like, I'm doing my practice, but if once your eyes are on you, you're thinking, okay, well, are they judging me, or am I doing this right, or are they going to learn from me, or are they going to leave after they see me struggle? Are they going to see me go, God, that looks horrible. I don't want to do that ever. I don't want to learn from her anymore. Or what's going to be so. I think for me, like, getting myself on the mat and getting myself practicing every day is like, look, here I go on this journey, and let's see how it goes today, like all of us. But I think if the emotional threshold, like you're talking about, I think it gets easier the more you are a little more open about your practice. If you're like that vulnerability is kind of part of it. And then you're kind of prepared for it more. I don't know.
Immersion therapy. Just jump in.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's just like if you think of it like Kapotasana, for example, right? We're all like, oh, here we go, and your hands start sweating, and you go in, and someone's watching you, and the breath changes, and huffing, they're looking at you. I mean, I think that's okay to see that people see that you too struggle with the postures you're supposed to know perfectly. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, yeah.
My students in San Francisco, they'd say to me, you know how you watch someone practice and they make it look easy and you think, oh, I could do it. They said they would feel exactly the opposite with me. Like, they watch me practice and it's like, you really make this look hard. It's like,
Thanks a lot. Yes.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
You're the most uninspiring practitioner I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean right today? Like right now?
I'm just saying that's basically what they're telling
But that's
you.
Harmony also thinks that. I'm also the least inspiring practitioner she's ever been around. Obviously, considering how inspired you are to practice.
But I think we all started somewhere. Like, I mean, like my story, like I was now like graceful practitioner. Like, I'd come in the room, throw my mat down, get stuck in the pose. I didn't smell very. I'm just saying, like all those etiquettes, like, you know what I mean? All those etiquettes, like wash yourself. Like I remember teachers, whatever, my, just being, just like take care of yourself a bit more, Sarah.
Oh my God.
Like, what do you mean? I mean, I'm saying,
my God.
Like you're if you're like used to being, you still shower and do all that, but your mat cleanliness, like all that, all this umbrella, this etiquette. It's like all this etiquette that a beginner is supposed to know. They don't know in the beginning. And so, they don't know that to wash your mat or bring a new rug or wear new clothes or wash your clothes the night before. So I think that remembering how you once were before, you've probably come a long way, Russell.
I remember
you do bathe regularly now.
Yeah, I do bathe regularly. I do remember the day guy came up to me and said, "Dude, you got to wash your mat." I was like, "Oh, I'm just like died inside." I'm like, "Oh, I'm smelly. I'm smelly, sticky."
Or all those like new things that you learn that you only learn from, like, being in the room.
Told.
It's so awkward to have those conversations as a teacher, though.
Yeah.
I love that. Just take care of yourself a little more.
You did kind of take
it was also
care
just
of
the way I was walking. It was the way I was walking. I remember I had that firefighting, like boom, ba boom, ba boom, and I remember taking tango classes, and so I danced tango for a while because I was like, I have got to learn how to move smoothly.
Oh, wow!
Well, like even that, all that masculinity, it was like I need to just really, really learn about how to walk again. And the teacher said, "You are walking like a cow." And it was like, that's what a cow would like, ba boom, ba boom. If you had heavy boots, it'd be like,
you're adding diversity to the room, though. I think that's helpful. People not get so attached to a particular way of being.
No, I think that's so interesting because you're like quite a petite girl, actually, but it's so like cool to think about how you can really like take on this energy and this like and change your body and change the way that you move in space and occupy space, and that you even had that awareness of like, wow, I've like really gone to this extreme. How can I bring myself back to balance? Yeah.
Maybe I was always that way, right? That drawn to that, like, whether it was like firefighting or park ranger work or climbing and skiing, and it was like, okay, well, bringing it back down to this more feminine or more, I don't know, more me, but not knowing that unless you've always done one thing. I think that's one of the things that yoga was one of those secrets, right? Of the yoga practice for me was like kind of, softening, learning to walk a little quieter, not so heavy. And I think that's kind of one of the things about taking care of yourself is like, just do a little bit less, a little easier, a little softer. And that was it. That's how I slipped into poses, finally. Softening, not trying hard.
Softening, trying less hard, probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
But even to have that like awareness that you can change that, because lots of people feel like fixed, like a very fixed kind of, energy or entity. But for you, obviously, whether, I don't know if it was the yoga practice or what, but you had a sense that you were quite malleable and like could change and transform yourself into something very different.
Absolutely. Like the body, the way that my body physically changed from 2000 until now, 2022, from starting in hatha yoga from a book to like casual practice on my own to finally finding some guidance with teachers, I think all of it was just sloughing off, slowing things down, refining, being a little calmer, a little quieter. So it's a good thing. I mean, it's still working, right?
Yeah, still changing.
I want to kind of dig into this subject just a little bit. I have final question, but I want to dig into this for a moment. I think it's especially interesting this week in terms of talking about female autonomy over themselves. Just to set up, one of the things that I would do working with young kids in Title I schools and urban settings is that I would talk about reframing your personality towards who you're talking to. And so if you're being approached by a police officer, taking deep breaths and not being as reactive can literally keep you alive. Yeah. And so I would talk to them about that. And then the pushback on that politically is that I'm being a tone police. I'm saying you have to shift your personality so that the patriarchy and the white male authoritarians don't punish you for being you, right? So you've got you've got Black kids. It's like, I want to just be myself. I don't want to have to shift my tone so that I don't get killed by a police officer.
Right. Well,
women also have to think about that. I think they have to think about, how do they have to shift their personality so that they don't get attacked by men. And it's like, well, I feel like they shouldn't have to. And so maybe I'm making this a bit too heavy. Like, why should you have to shift yourself walking into a yoga room? Like, you be you. You bringing a heavy masculine energy in a class or stomping around. Well, fuck them. Yeah, be you.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's really precious. I feel like that's right. A yoga shala shouldn't be this place where you have to all of a sudden become this Ashtanga yogi and stand samasthiti and listen and adhere and follow the rules. And, yet, there's this fine line of teaching an etiquette or teaching a sense of sensitivity in the yoga room where you can be messy or loud or be yourself, but then to know when to give the student that ability to have that, but also understand that there's some sort of like ethics for the whole room, that makes everybody feel safe, not just them. Like I like that with just teaching a little bit differently. Like, all right, I want you to use your breath, inhale, your breath, exhale. If that's too fast, then take your time. Or if that bothers you, just take rest. Like, I think that idea of like, let's just give you a little more space to digest this practice without pushing it on you. That's not to say I'm not still going, lift your arms, look at your thumbs, exhale forward. You want to still teach the right way. But
yeah, it's a funny balance between there being a methodology, but also space for interpretation, space for individuality within the methodology, right?
Right. And so I think not changing someone's walk or changing their walk, I don't think you probably need to unless they knew they if it's going to keep them safe and healthy, then they can just walk the way they want to. I don't think we need to change them. But for me, I kind of needed to be told to take a little more care and walk a little softer in the environment because it represented. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go on about what it represented.
Yeah, it represents that's what we're trying to do here is listen and soften. Or listen and be loud, but you're still listening. And if someone's like, bum, 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 that environment we're creating of like a safe environment for others to see and feel, we don't want to mess with that too much.
Yeah. And I think that brings up an important thing about the awareness, right? Like self-awareness is not just about like how I'm feeling and how I'm doing. It's like, how is my effect on others, on my environment? Like, how am I affecting the space? How am I affecting other people? That's also self-awareness. And then having intention around that, right? I mean, we all know yoga is the 8 limbs. Like, am I creating harm? Am I creating, an emotional like disturbance, or am I, like what is my effect? Is it an aggressive effect? Is it a peaceful effect? And having that self-reflection, self-awareness, that all develops with the practice of yoga. And we're all always changing our behavior, and we're all always changing how we are in different spaces. And that's just normal. That's just being human. And being in a collective human group. The way we are at home is probably quite different than the way we are at work, which is quite different than the way we are at church, which is quite different than the way we are out on the street in a known area, in an unknown area.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like we're always changing and adapting. We're never like one thing, because we're everything and we're nothing. So we have infinite potential to be, all those things.
And I think back in the day when I was beginning yoga, I think I probably wanted to be the one that was seen. So maybe that was, I wanted to be the one that got help. So it's like, hey, I'm the new girl, I need the help. Or like,
There's a big flashing light bulb.
Now when you walk in a yoga room and you're like, oh gosh, I hope no one sees me. Like you don't really want to have an impact. You want to do your quiet thing. You want to be transparent. You want to not like I'll just kind of hide in the corner. And then maybe in the beginning it wasn't like that. You want that attention. You want to learn. You're hungry. You're hungry for it. You want that attention. And then later, as the years go on, you're like, I'm good. Don't touch me.
I just want to hide back here.
Don't touch me. I'm good. Like, right? Like, I'm good. So
that's fantastic.
I love that. I mean, it's so interesting, these subtleties about our actions, our behaviors, our personalities, and like all of the stuff that they contain. Something as simple as the way that you're walking, like, holds within it like so many different things that we don't really think about. But when you start to break it down, it can hold like that masculine energy. It can hold sort of an energy of like, I'm here now, let the class begin. It can hold also like a fear about being seen, right? It can hold all kinds of different things. It's beautiful.
Definitely.
I have one last question for you. This is really been enjoying talking to you and getting to know you, Sarah. This is fantastic.
Thank you both.
You had one point you wanted to talk about, and I would love to hear your perspective on this. I was surprised to hear your feelings about authorization with Sharat and the I don't know what it's called now, the Sharat Choice Yoga
Orthodoxy.
Center? The Orthodoxy. You yourself haven't pursued it, towards getting an authorization or getting a certification, but you have been to Mysore, and yet you sincerely encourage your students to go and get authorized and go get their authorization level too. And I'm wondering what value you see in that for them, given that you've been motivated to go in different directions, and say with Dena, for example.
I think that's a great question. And I brought it up because I wanted to share a little bit about it. And I feel like that there's the global community of Ashtanga Yoga, this like all these people that practice from all around the world. It's like we're all joined together. And I like a lot of, and there could be some ideas that people aren't joined together if they're not of a certain teacher, or if they're not in a certain shala. And from my experience, it's like, I want that gap to get closed. I want people to know that anybody that's practicing Ashtanga Yoga sincerely and seriously and cares about it so deeply, that they too are involved in this great global community. So I don't really see that there's like, oh, there's the authorized ones and then there's the non-authorized ones, but there is that. So it's to remove that, it's like, just go get authorized, be a part of the bigger, keep continuing to click that, to get that connected. And then that to me is great, because although I didn't go, there's lots of reasons why I never went back. I met David, I met Dena. My path kind of went towards studying with them, but I really feel so connected to the people that were authorized and were continuing to go. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote you Harmony when I heard you got certified. So I was like, I'm so happy you got certified. I was like delighted for you, because there's that click again that I met someone who's excellent and special. I met her and she's now certified. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's that connection. So I just feel like in particular, my student Emma Isokivi, who went to Mysore and she's now level 2 authorized. She continued to go to Mysore because of lots of reasons. She loves the practice. She loved Guruji. She loved it, but also she knew that this was going to be her career, and to carry her career, there would be helpful to her to have as much support in that journey. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I felt like I just feel like I'm so connected to David and Dena, and their blessing has given me lots of ability to share the method so sincerely. And so I haven't felt like I didn't need the authorization, but I could always use an authorization. But the truth is that I believe that anybody that loves this method so much and practices with such sincerity under the guidance of sincere teachers, they should teach.
Yeah.
I really pushed this issue with Dena one afternoon when we were in Australia, and I really kind of went after it with her, like about the notion of legitimacy. And legitimacy is a social construct, and so you only get a king if everyone agrees that person is king, and no one agrees to it and the king gets removed, and it's pushing that issue, like, well, what about Manju? What about your lineage, Dena? And she wanted to throw the entire conversation up and back at me. It's like, well, what about your sincere pursuit of yoga? Who cares? Are you pursuing yoga? Are you learning? What do you give a shit about legitimacy or not? And I was like, okay, fantastic. Then, yeah, all right. Why?
I think she also said a really beautiful thing in that conversation. She said that the parampara is between a teacher and a student.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And that it has nothing to do with what anyone else thinks or sees, but it's just the relationship between that teacher and that student, and that is the stream of transmission.
Mm-hmm.
And
definitely.
And I think that's a kind of a beautiful thing, like also that you're saying that, when you have those sincere relationships with senior teachers or teachers, anyone who's been a teacher for you, and you've received some transmission from, then that itself is part of, I guess, the authority to teach, or that authorization, right? When you have that blessing. From a teacher or someone that you respect, that you've received the teachings from, because we've all received the teachings from someone somewhere along the way, right? We don't come into this life knowing how to practice yoga, or especially Ashtanga yoga, right?
The adjustments, the talking, the caring, the sharing, the singing, the bhakti, it's all transmitted. And Dena had a fun conversation with me about this once. And she says, Guruji was like a great tree, and he had all this fruit hanging on the tree, and the fruit of his tree, it's all of his oldest students, and the fruit tastes a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can have many teachers and all that, but like we're all in the same tree. Loving the practice, just so dedicated to it. And then if you have a student you're with a company of people that have such love for the practice, you're like, you just join the club. Like the club sounds funny, but like connect yourself with people that are authorized or non-authorized, and go for that connection with someone.
Each club sandwich is unique. I agree.
But it's helpful to have a Sangha, right? It's helpful to have a community, to have that support to keep you motivated and inspired and going.
It's really important to have a group, I think, even if it's someone that you email to, right? even if it's a friend, like I feel like that way about my chanting teacher, David Miliotis. You guys know David in Orange.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't get to practice with David as much as I like, because he's really an old friend of mine. He was one of the people that I would drive to Bend in Idaho and go see once in a while. I mean, I knew David when he was in Bend, so he's anyway, and he I don't get to practice with him very much, but when I do, it's an email, it's a phone call. So it's still he's my teacher of chanting, but like the relationship is so connected that it's like sometimes we chant, sometimes not.
Yeah.
Right. It's like there's that deep caring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's a beautiful guy. A couple of times we've made appointments to do the podcast, and we haven't. One day we'll nail it down a time. One day.
I brought him to Edinburgh, and he taught for like a week in my program there. 2017.
Yeah.
It was before I had Calvin, and we just had the most wonderful time, and all the Scottish yogis just loved him to death. So
he's fantastic.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, it's beautiful. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. It's been so great to connect with you. And thank you so much for sharing.
Harmony
all of your
and Russell,
insights.
it's just a delight to talk to you guys. And thank you for having me and reaching out. And I was just very delighted to be a part of your day today. Thank you.
I hope that we get to Dublin.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
On our way to Edinburgh.
Dublin.
One day.
Yeah.
One day,
you guys. We'll definitely get you to Dublin. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, it'd be fun. But tell everyone where they can find you. You must have a website.
It's my name, sarahhatcheryoga.com. You can find me for some chanting classes. You can come to Mysore, you can come to online class.
Do you do online class as well?
I do the online with the in-house. So it seems to work pretty good. I don't have this same audio setup, but I run from.
Is it challenging to like do the computer and the real person?
I think it's kind of cool because the online community knows they're all there, and they've all been practicing together now since the pandemic, pretty much for 2 years. So they log on, they see each other, they do their thing. I check in, I talk, I do some chanting. I give some instruction. I walk away, I come back. It's kind of like being in a Mysore room, honestly, because I'm not like staring at them so much. So there's a lot of like, I'll come back and come and see you in a minute. And then I go work with others, come back. And so it's actually better than when I would just sit there and stare at the Mysore room. And chat, you know, and then you're just chatting, and you're chatting in a sincere way, but you're like talking so much about the physical, the subtle, the breath, the bond, that you don't really do that in a regular Mysore room. There is instruction, but you do it this way, or you do it through, hands-on, you do it through body, there's so many ways you can teach in the Mysore room, but online, there's only one really way.
Through your voice.
Or maybe a demonstration, but like, that's kind of,
it's true. That's beautiful. It's neat to hear your experience of that, because I've been curious how teachers have been adapting to it, and if
it's great,
you've kind of found a rhythm with it all.
Yeah, I think I've found the rhythm, and I think it's here to stay for me, because the community I have online is they're from all over, not just Ireland, and so they can come. They know I'm at the same time every day, and then whereas the Dublin crew, they're kind of my babies. I need to grow them a bit more. Like I'm watering them a lot. Like, okay, guys, come early. Whereas the online crew,
early, you're late.
The online crew is always there. They're kind of more established.
It's interesting, right? Having to like grow an in-person program again from the ground up, really, since even the pandemic, right?
A lot of beginners that I just teaching chanting, teaching basic things like the invocation, and
beautiful.
So it just takes time, as you know.
It does. It does, but it will flourish for sure. So
thanks, Harmony.
They're in good hands.
They are in great hands. You can feel that.
You,
that's
Russell.
what I want to say.
Thanks so much. I hope so, and I can't wait to see the Dublin community grow. So beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Awesome.